Welcome back, guys, to the Beyond Condition podcast, where today I have two very, very special guests that I'm really, really excited to introduce onto the pod this week. Emma Hyndman and Rob Latti. So Rob's been on the pod kindly a few times, and Emma is joining us for a bit of a roundtable. Now, both of you are very adverse in the experience of life in regards to what we're going to talk about today, so dealing with conflict, but of course both of you are well known in the bodybuilding world. So thank you for coming on today, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
It's great to be here again.
Yeah, for sure. And I always get really good feedback because I think mindset sometimes is overlooked in bodybuilding, but as we all know, it's so important, especially like you say, Rob, you know, to build a champion mindset, there's a lot that goes into it.
Absolutely. And I think, listen, it's not just bodybuilding, it's sport in general. And I think the sporting world has really embraced mindset now over the last, I think about 10 to 12 years. You know, we've seen with the advent of the England football team, the England rugby team and tennis players and all that, they've all got mindset coaches now and stuff. So they understand the correlation between mindset and being at peak performance in sport, and realizing that actually a lot of people are talented, a lot of people can actually do the work, but that extra 10% is all up here, and that's what usually messes everybody else up. And in bodybuilding, we spoke about it so many times, there's so many facets to it, isn't there, with in terms of, you know, when people are going through prep, when you're going through prep maybe with a relationship issue, it could be interpersonal relationships of any kind, it could be your family, it could be work, could be anything. So understanding how to get through that and being able to stay strong is super. And then you've got injuries and all that, because I've just literally just got off with somebody who's having a bit of a meltdown about an injury and they can't train for 3 weeks, and what shall I do? So it's being able to deal with that and then overcome it and go the right way. So yeah,
for sure. And Emma, have you done work with Rob yourself in regards to when you were competing and you becoming a champion?
Yeah. So
old school.
Old school. We're taking it back to day one. So myself and Rob worked together from about 2016, I want to say, maybe slightly earlier.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and really, I remember before I started to work with Rob, he used to stop me in the gym and talk to me about mindset and champion mindset. And it was kind of I kind of poo-pooed it a little bit. I was just a bit like, what are you talking about? Oh, Rob, here we go. It's off on a tangent again. But when I actually started to absorb what Rob was saying, and it then started to really resonate with me as an athlete, then I just became, and I kind of realized that I actually already had a few of those mindset traits naturally, probably just from being a dancer, and you know, whether that's being self-employed and, you know, always just kind of having to have that own drive of my own and becoming over to limiting beliefs as well. But when I started to work with Rob, we were really focusing on my bodybuilding career, also business as well. We've worked together relationship wise. So really all facets of life. I've been lucky enough to be able to have Rob there on hand. In regards to bodybuilding, gosh, lots of champion mindset talk. So yeah, it really started 2016 when I was going for, I think it was maybe the World Championships in Brazil for NABA. Very much so the underdog, was really just like we were just going for coffee really, weren't we? And you were just kind of like installing your knowledge and your wisdom on me. And I've always been a bit of a sponge. Yeah. And I'm quite good at soaking up, and I know when someone's like right and they're onto something. And then we really got into it when I went after the all important pro card. So that was around 2017. We just started to connect more and more. And yeah, and I've not really looked back since.
I believe it's been 6 years.
Yeah. It's been a long time, but, you know, as I said, I feel like truly grateful that, and I tell Rob this all of the time, that I am so lucky to be able to, you know, tap into him on whatever facet that might be, because it really does cross over into all aspects and areas of life. So, but yeah, bodybuilding, it was really important for me to have Rob there on my side.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many things that go into competing in itself, in regards to even just, you know, completing a prep, let alone then dealing with going on stage, especially the first timers that listen and they're gearing up for their first time competing. It's like all of these emotions and feelings that you get. It's quite something, isn't it?
It's overwhelming. And I think, especially as a first timer, there's a lot of unknowns. And, you know, when I first started to compete, there was really nowhere to go and learn and have these experiences. Like now you can do stage coaching workshops and you've got prep coaches and there's YouTube and there's lots of content available, but there's still that element of not knowing what you're walking into. And I think that's where a lot of first timers get inside their own heads, because then they start to doubt themselves, because they start to maybe look at other people, or what are they going to have that I've not got? Am I going to look out of place? And I just think, as Rob said many times before, you know, if you are just ticking those daily boxes, pass over the control to your coach, you know, to your posing coach, to your prep coach, hand over the baton there and just focus on what you can do on a daily basis.
Yeah, for sure. Would you agree, Rob?
Absolutely. Hitting a nail on the head there, really has. And, you know, from my perspective, there's so many areas in bodybuilding that needs to be looked at, especially for first timers. So always try and find help from people who are more experienced, because you do go into it blind and then it's like, whoa, you know. and I think one of the biggest ones as well is when things start hitting you, like body dysmorphia, especially, you know, I'd say one of the biggest ones that I deal with a lot with people is they get towards the end of their prep and then they have a meltdown. I'm not coming in enough, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, and my legs, my back, my this, that. It's not. And then you have to sort of, you know, do some work with them and bring them back to reality. And, you know, sometimes afterwards, usually after the show, they look back at pictures and go, oh my God, I was ripped. And they just, but you can, and like one of them said to me recently, you know, I just couldn't see it. I look at the photos now and I think, oh my God, who was I? What the you know, because we had tears and, you know, literally snot coming out the nose and a meltdown. But honestly, when you look back, they go, what? But that's the brain, and that's what its job is to do. It's to protect you. So when it gets scared, which you do when you get close to the competition date, the brain goes into protection mode. So deep down in your amygdala at the bottom, there's a little bit there, and that's what is whispering to you, going, you're not going to do this. You look shit. Don't go. Save yourself the embarrassment. You know, just cancel it. Step up. And it's learning to overcome those little whispers in your head and think logically, because you literally are looking at yourself in the mirror and can't see the woods for the trees. So that's where I've got to go in there and hopefully do my stuff and bring them back round to and again, as you get older, because we're talking about first timers here, as you get more experience, you still have those thoughts, because people who have been in it years still say to me, but you get over it now. You kind of know, trust the process. And I know on the day I'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure.
I think as well with, you know, when I work with clients towards the back end of their prep, ironically, usually it's the ones that are looking the best that doubt themselves the most.
Yeah.
And then, like Rob said, you know, when they get through the other side and they look back at their prep pictures, they're like, oh my God, like I actually looked really good, but I just couldn't see it. But maybe that's because, I don't know, they have a higher standard of themselves. Maybe that's you know, some sort of mindset thing. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. Did you find, Emma, when you went for your pro card, these sorts of feelings came back like when you first stepped on stage, or was it a different?
For me, it was, I was already putting the doubt in there at the very beginning. Myself and Rob, I remember a really poignant conversation that I had with a good friend at the time, and I was almost talking myself down. And I remember sitting saying to her, you know, there's this other girl competing. I don't think I'm going to be able to beat her. So, you know, I'm just gonna shoot for second place. You know, I'm probably never gonna, or maybe I just won't bother competing because I'm never going to beat this girl. So I'm not going to get my pro card. And this is where your circle and your relationship is so important with the people around you, because she then responded and said, Yeah, like it doesn't matter. Like you don't need to win. Like it's not a big deal. She obviously thought she was telling me the right thing. And then when I told Rob, I kind of called him up and I was like, I'm feeling like this. And I was chatting to my friend about it. And she said this. And Rob said, if I could reach down the phone now and slap you across the face, I would. And obviously we're friends. So,
Yeah,
you know, I'm sure you wouldn't say that to a normal client, but and it maybe and without even knowing it, you're already setting yourself up for the failure. You know, you're already saying, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't win. And I really like truly believe at that stage for me as well, a lot of it for me was pressure. I knew there was a lot of expectation on me, like coming back to the stage after a year off and people expecting me to get a pro card. So that came with its own pressures as well. But I really had to install that champion mindset immediately and think like a pro, act like a pro, execute every day like a pro before I was even a pro. And that's really how I had to think. So I already knew inside that, you know, I'm worthy of this. Like I can do this day to day like a pro. So I'm going to get that pro card. But I always have a sense of reality where it might not be right now, but I'm going to get that pro card.
Yeah. Being realistic with your expectations.
I think there is an element of that. Obviously, you've got to have that champion mindset, but there is an element of being a realist. You know, you might not get the pro card straight away, but you continue to tick the boxes, do what you got to do, because there's many variables. You might not be good enough to be a pro, or you've got to just consider those variables as well.
Rob mentioned on the last pod about embracing the different phases. We were speaking about how it's quite hard to transition into off season sometimes off the back of getting stage condition, which, as we know, you can't stay in that condition for too long.
No.
And Rob was saying, act like a professional. Yes, you've got to push up your body weight, but then you're going to come back down and you're going to compete and you're going to hopefully look better if you've had a successful growth phase. So if you walk around and own it rather than I look terrible, I look fat, I look big, all of these things that go through our mind, if you keep your chest held high, you do, then you come across in a very different way compared to if you're, almost negative self-talk.
Yeah, the self-talk is so important, and in bodybuilding, it's not just about being shredded and being on stage. It's 247 365, and if you want to be a successful bodybuilder, then you have to accept that there's going to be phases where you're pushed outside your comfort zone, whether that's in your improvement season or whether that's in your prep. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's a sport of
we love that quote.
It's that extreme of like pushing right down to stage condition and then potentially pushing up past where you'd be comfortable, as it were.
Comfortable. And it's like, and I think especially as the female, you maybe don't feel as you really want to. We get body conscious, and your dresses don't fit, and you go shopping and you can't fit into things. But I've actually been like watching a competitor who I've worked with recently, and she's been really open about her shopping experience and her clothes. And I'm like, I'm all there for it, because I remember going shopping and wanting to buy tops and not being able to get my lats and my shoulders in, and thinking like, oh my God, like I can't find anything to wear, and I feel uncomfortable. And we have to kind of put that to one side and just really focus on the end goal. And this is what I've got to do at this moment in time if I really do want to get the results that I am setting the standard for.
Yeah, definitely. And again, just to reiterate on that is something I deal with a hell of a lot, and it just made me smile then, because it brought back memories of a couple of people recently who just gone through this as well. And even to the point where one lady who's probably going to listen to this, she was telling me about how she didn't even want to go on holiday, and how it's detrimental then to your partner and stuff, because she didn't want to go on holiday because she didn't feel good about her body to go on holiday because she's growing. And, when you've been in prep for so long and you're used to looking at what you see in the mirror, and then all of a sudden it looks like Mr. Blobby is in front of you. And she didn't want to go out in town. She didn't want to go for meals. She didn't want to do anything. She just wanted to have her joggers on and just go to gym because she felt horrible. And it's working through what the brain is trying to tell you there and do to you. But as a woman, especially, like, just to reiterate what Emma said, it is really, really hard. Like for men, they love it because they feel like they're tanks. They're walking around like, look at me, I'm huge, you know. But for the women, quite often,
you feel unattractive.
Yeah, you feel unattractive, and they want to look sexy, they want to look great. And there's that very fine point, isn't there, after you've been super shredded and you just get to a point where you look fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, I want to stay like that, but then you know there's another 2 stone to come or something, and all of a sudden they then can very, very quickly hit a massive spiral downhill.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can have eating disorders, all sorts of things creeping. So I've done a lot of work with people on that. So it's very, very important to sort of keep yourself, not like Emma said earlier, is have the right people around you, the right support network as well, to transition out of the competitive phase into everyday phase, and realize that it's part of it. And one of the biggest things, a little mindset tip I give to one of my clients about that was, you've got to shift your mindset and shift your perspective, should I say, and start thinking not like a normal person. You've got to think, I'm an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And once we had that mindset shift, she was fine, because she never looked at it like that. She was always trying to go from competing to being like every other girl with a little frilly dress on walking down the road. And
it's like a job.
Yeah, you've got to shift it and say, I'm an athlete. And I sort of alluded to her that you've got to think like a pro rugby player, woman player. You right? She's an athlete. She's got to walk down the road looking the way she looks, because she is an athlete. And whatever, you know, it could be a professional athlete, a sports person, a runner, it could be a javelin, it could be a shot putter, it could be anything. You're a bodybuilder. And once you make that mental transition and say, do you know what, I'm an athlete, I'm in off season,
it's an identity as well.
This is what I'm doing. Yeah, you've got nail on the head. So it's about your identity. I am an athlete. When you walk down the road and someone over the road's looking at you and you've got massive delts and a massive back, you're an athlete. You're not that girl walking down the road. What she doesn't get is that buzz you're going to get when you stood on stage and you're, you know, a champion of whatever it is, and you're getting idolized by everyone and you're looking super ripped and lean. She don't get that thing. She just walks down the road going, oh my God, look at her, she looks massive. But she don't know what you do. You've got to stop the identity and really own it as an athlete, and you can't have it all. And this is where I get really tough with them and say, look, this is where you've got to suck it up and get on with it. You chose the life of a bodybuilder, and in that life, there's seasons around that year. You know, you've got your competitive bit, you're in prep, then you're off prep, then you're this and that. You've got to accept you're an athlete. If you want it all, unfortunately, you can't have it. You have to find something else, because it's not for you.
It really, I think if you just approach it like it's a job and it's who you are, and you know, we have to embrace the improvement season. I don't even like to call it off season, because it's not off season, because these are the most integral parts of your bodybuilding calendar, because these are the moments that make you look even better on stage. You know, the prep really is where the majority of the hard work is already done. You're just trying to just showcase the muscle that you've been building in your improvement season. So I think if people can just shift and don't think about prep as the hard bit. Actually, the improvement season should be the hard bit, and the prep is that's where you get to just showcase it, you know, and be proud that you walk down the street and you're tense as hell and people are looking at you, and embrace that persona. Like I never, thankfully, was ever really emotional about that. I was always quite happy doing the work, and I always thrived on seeing progress. If I knew my lifts were getting stronger and I could feel things filling out, and you know, the legs getting bigger and the delts getting bigger. Oh, I loved it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I did have to maybe get dressed up, I felt a little bit like, oh, okay, this is a little bit uncomfortable. But I think as well as females, like, we can learn to dress our shape so that we do feel confident.
Yeah, that's a really good tip, actually, because I actually speak to some of my competitors that I coach, and I say to them, you know, I've got like a prep wardrobe and then improvement season wardrobe, because
Yeah.
you're not gonna, when you try and fit into certain things that you fit in prep, you're only gonna almost like make yourself second guess, oh god, I'm getting bigger, and then if you're already a little bit self-conscious, it starts to spiral out of control.
Yeah, 100%.
As females as well, I mean, you'll probably agree that when you're out of prep, you get a lot of people say, you look much better.
Yeah. When you're out, oh god, yeah, because you look like death during prep. You know, you're in the grind, aren't you? The hair's scraped up, there's not really much makeup on. We live in like baggies. Yeah, we don't look great. Like, there's not a lot of effort going in there, and people do say that to you. And I think people, maybe that gets into people's heads as well. You know, like, oh, you look so much healthier now, and it's like, no, like, you don't get it.
That's where you've got to adopt the athlete mindset. You've just got to say, this person doesn't understand I'm an athlete. It's that simple. I go through
and a lot of people
through a phase in my life, in my year, where I look like this. And it's like you said, you hit nail on the head again, Emma, where you've just got to have that mindset that this is who I am. It's not this bit, I'm going to be like that. That bit, I'm going to be like that. No, I'm an athlete. And I'm going to go up and down, and my weight's going to be all over, and that's what I do. This is who I am, and you have to commit to it. One thing I talk about with clients is, at the beginning, I always say to them, I try to ascertain how deep you're into this, and what bracket do you fall in? I think we've touched on this before on this podcast, but I always try and say, look, if you're in it for a bit of fun and getting on stage will be a buzz and you'll have a great time, then that's fantastic. If you're in it for, I want to get on stage, but I wouldn't mind getting like a top 3, and if I can do that a couple of times, I'll be happy. Or I want to get on stage and I want to win, and I want to then win a British, and then maybe I want to get a pro card. You've got to realize where you're at. And once you do that, go all in. Everything else stops. But then you don't worry so much about looking like Skeletor at one point and then looking like He-Man at another point, you know, because you know what you're trying to do and you know where you're at. This sport is a very, very tough sport. I come from a boxing background, and the dieting and training was brutal, but the dieting in bodybuilding is well, we all know, let's call a spade a spade. It's unhealthy, right? And it's brutal. So you can't come into that with a mindset of, I want to get all the adulation of being on stage. I want to look super ripped and look fantastic, and I want to look brilliant off season as well. And I don't want any food problems, and I don't want to worry about eating. And I don't want that, and I want to look great all year round. You can't have it all. So I think, especially for people starting out, it's very important to go through that mindset journey at the beginning. Understand where you're going from. Listen to podcasts like this. Listen to experienced people like yourselves, and say, right, I know I'm going to be big. I'm going to be lean. I'm going to look like Skeletor. I'm going to scare my parents at times. They're going to think I'm anorexic or something because they don't understand what it's about. Get that in your head if you're listening now, in fact, and you're just starting out, understand every facet of this game first and make peace with it. And once you make peace with it, honestly, the journey is going to be so much easier for you.
Much easier. Yeah. You almost just have to allow yourself to, be fluid with it.
Yeah.
Like, allow yourself, like water, just to like bend in whatever direction you need to go in.
People have a different
view,
resist. Don't they? Different people have a different view, Emma, don't they? So like friends might think you look horrendous. A boyfriend will prefer you at different stages. So you've got to get used to the fact that he's not going to like you maybe for a bit of it, unless it's a bodybuilder and he gets it. That's different. You've got a whole different things, the mindset of dealing with a partner that when you're in
it's hard to hear from people. It's hard to hear from people that they don't like the way you look. That's, I think, even more so as a woman, it's like, God, like, give me a break. Like, you just don't need to hear other people's thoughts. But unfortunately, the world that we live in, people are going to tell you what they think because they think they're looking out for you, or they think you want to hear their opinion. And I think you've got to learn very quickly to switch off to people that don't matter.
Save your energies.
Yeah, like, because especially the people who aren't going to get it, like your parents or, you know, your friends that want you to go out and eat dinner, or they don't get it that you have to get up and go and train, you can't go on holiday. Like, if they don't get it, then just distance yourself, because you really need a really strong circle of people that are going to pour into your cup and not like tip it out.
Yeah, I love that analogy, the filling it, pouring from a filled cup rather than, you know, just being drained.
Fill my cup up, pour into me, and I'll pour into you.
Yeah, it's when you find those friendships as well, because in bodybuilding, you know, the community, you can really find, like, I've got some best friends that have come from the sport, and I'd call them more friends than people that I've maybe known my whole life. But you don't always find it straight away, but if you give off the right vibe, you attract the right tribe, as they say.
Yeah,
100%.
Tribe always attracts your tribe, and it's super important, because you will have those who at first it sounds great to them, especially if they've never heard about bodybuilding or anything, and they go, oh, it's really cool, you're going to be a bodybuilder, and then when they see you going through it, they're like, whoa.
Yeah, like, oh, how much longer, when can we go out for a drink again? I used to like, and luckily my friends that, you know, had that tight-knit circle, and then that next layer of circle of friends, and some of them I used to say, I'll see you in 6 months, because I'll see you in 6 months, like, I love you, but I'll see you later. Or I had friends and I was like, I can go for coffee, and that's it. So you just kind of have to be like a little bit brutal, and if they're your friends, you know, they'll understand straight away. But you know, the bodybuilding industry is and the community is amazing for that, because then, you know, you can resonate with people that understand your journey, your struggle as well, and you know, you can help each other and support each other there as well.
That's why that circle is important, super important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it's family, you know, like my mum, at first, it was sort of, there was a real pushback. Like you said earlier, Rob, that was hitting the nail on the head. She thought I was anorexic. She's thinking, fucking hell, my daughter's disappearing in front of me. And she couldn't quite understand it. And she does now. And I tried to sort of softly educate her. She doesn't need to know it all, but, you know, just try and tell her it's really important to me, etc. Is there any sort of tools or levels of communication that you would offer in support of, you know, if it comes from family and closer people?
This is why I said you've got to, at the very beginning, especially this is going out to those new people who are listening, you've got to set your stall out now. You have to understand what you're going to go through, what's happening, and then you can educate those who are very close to you. The other people, like Emma said before, it doesn't matter about them, forget them. Acquaintances and fair weather friends, your tightest people, your real closest crew as such, your family, your immediate family, and maybe a partner, and maybe a close friend or two. You let them know what's coming. You know, I am going to lose weight. I'm going to go down to sort of 5, 6, 7% body fat, whatever it is. You know, I'm going to look shocking, but I'm fine. Look at me now. I'm fine. But in 14, 12, 16 weeks, you're going to get a little bit concerned, right? You know, but I'm here to tell you I'm fine. So have the conversation beforehand, not at the time. So that way they're ready for it too. And you know, it stops all the flack, because as we've said before, you've got enough stress as it is without having all that coming in. Oh God, you're still doing that. Like Emma said, when can we go out? Boyfriends that are like, oh my God, this is dragging on. It's been, you said it was just going to be this, but you've gone into another competition. So it isn't 12 weeks. Now it's 24 or 36. Or one of my clients who was on prep for, I think it was literally nearly a year, you know, and it's like, people can't get their heads around that. You know, no socializing, hardly eating, you know, being tired all the time. That's a big one that's not spoken about a lot, you know, just too tired for stuff. And then sexual relations within the relationship and can take a hit. And people just don't talk about this stuff. And where do you learn that? You know? So it's getting around people, like I think Emma mentioned, I think before, it's getting around more experienced people and understanding what's coming. Once you understand that, dealing with it becomes so much easier.
Yeah, it's communicating it, isn't it? I think sometimes, I don't know if you guys have it, you know, when you're doing something, whether it's leading up to a competition or you're stuck into like a challenge, as it were, so like a prep, or for you boxing, Rob, where you try and go, no, I'm fine, and actually I found communicating in my relationship, which I started like touching on, you know, nearly a year ago, that the more I communicate with him, actually it's so much easier, because he knows that you know, it is hard, it is tough. But before I'd be like, I'm fine, you know. How are they meant to know how you're feeling unless you tell them?
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, we kind of don't want to complain, because we've chosen this journey, and everyone always says, you know, you see those quotes like, you made, or people, you know, the bodybuilders write on their statuses, don't complain, you made this choice. It's like, well, no, actually I made this choice, but sometimes I just need to just
vent.
express. I'm struggling, like, it's hard. It doesn't mean that because I've chosen to do this journey that it's going to be easy, and I can't express myself, you know. And I think, like you just said there, especially with a partner, you have to be able to have that open conversation of, you know what, babe, today I feel shit, like I'm tired, I have no energy for anything, I need your help. And hopefully you've got a partner that is supportive enough to do what you need them to do, and they're on that journey with you. But I do imagine that there's a lot of people out there that maybe don't have 100% support from their partner, which I can imagine just adds like a whole nother level of stress to the prep as well.
That's where Coach Rob comes in. But you've got to, she's hit the nail on the head, as Emma, because you've got to vent. And you know, in the amygdala, again, in well, it's not even that part of the brain, but I don't like to get technical on things, but within the subconscious, you know, you've got to vent and let it out. If anyone's read the chimp paradox, it's the chimp needs to vent, because if you try and hold him down, he affects, because he's your emotional part of the brain, and it spirals. So if you keep holding it in when you are struggling, it manifests in other areas and it becomes worse. So you need to be able to get it out. So if a partner's not, you know, very communicative, you need to then be able to have a friend to fall back on, and if not, get a coach or something, because you need to get that out, because if you don't, it will affect you. And as a bodybuilder, as we know, you don't need cortisol and other negative drugs coursing through your veins, because that's not good for muscle building and everything else. So you need that venting. You need to be able to let that steam, you know, like a kettle, you need to let that steam out, because if you don't, it'll explode. And it comes out in so many different ways for people. So if you're feeling stressed, you're feeling under pressure, maybe the prep's tough, maybe you just need to get something off your chest, you have to get that out. It's so important, is that, because if you don't unleash that beast, it will come out, but it'll find another way. And it could be lack of sleep, it can be a breakdown in some way, it can be something else, and it will be detrimental to what you're trying to achieve as an athlete.
It's almost self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not having that communication and you're just letting it all fester and build up, all it's going to do is make you feel worse inside, you know. So it's, if you can, just got to find that voice, open up that throat chakra, and just, you know, vent to your partner, your friend.
The human part of your brain needs to talk about it. It just does, you know. And the monkey, the more crazy one, right? The emotional side of your brain needs to get that out. But if you're holding all of them back, as Chimp Paradox talks about, the computer, the rational bit that wants to think and analyze and talk about stuff, all three of them need to get that out. And when none of them are allowed to really vent what's going on inside, it's just a pressure cooker going on in there. You need to get that out.
Rob, you mentioned earlier about sort of going down the route of food disorders, and of course in bodybuilding that is something that happens, you know, disordered eating or potentially pathways into food disorders. I found myself, you know, when I wasn't getting this out of my system, how I was feeling, and trying to just push on, I used to become very neurotic with, you know, like measuring my food, and then I'd measure it again, and then I'd check it again, then I'd put the containers in the fridge and check that they were all stacked. And I think for me it was like coming out in the food and the control of
what
that.
I'm saying. There's always different ways. Yes, there's so many different ways of it escaping out of you, and that is evident in what you're doing there. Some people have eating disorders and stuff like that, but you've even shown evidence there of something else that's slightly different as well. So which can manifest and grow and grow and grow, and you can end up doing all sorts of
crazy
disorders like that, you know, turning lights on and off and all. You'd be surprised at what I've had. And some people have massive sleeping disorders. I've just worked with someone on that. So there's a lot that it'll just manifest in weird ways. So you've got to make sure you allow the stress to get out so that you can perform at your best, because you've got to go and lift weights. You've got to go and be strong. You've got to go and be focused. Then you've got to be relaxed. Like something I was talking about with bodybuilders as well is the sleep is just as important as the training. We all know that, but it's really difficult. Most bodybuilders, and I'd say probably without exaggeration, 65-70% of the ones I've worked with at some point in their training have had a problem sleeping.
Yeah.
Whether they're worried, nervous, whatever, but there's been an issue with sleep. Now, as you know, getting great sleep, it helps you. I mean, even for me, who's never been a bodybuilder or anything like that, but I've always worked out all my life, when I sleep really well and eat really well for even 3 or 4 days in a row, I feel like Superman. It's amazing. It is the most natural drug in the world, isn't it? It's like you go to the gym and you're like, it's incredible. It really is. But when you haven't got it, oh my God, getting in the car's hard work. I'm like sluggish and heavy, and you go to the gym and like some of the clients say to me, they have a good session and you think it's good because you feel like you're still hitting your numbers, you're ticking it off, but it's not the same. And when you then get 3 or 4 days of good sleep under you and then you work out, it's incredibly different. You feel it different. You've got the bar in your hands and the power, the strength, you feel everything. But not just that, the growth after that is different as well. Because that's, as we know, the repair time. That's when your body, your muscles are repairing. And when I've had really good sleep for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks in a row, I can see myself. I literally look in the mirror and I'm growing. It's insane. So for athletes and especially those of you who aspire, if you're listening to this and you're aspiring to be good at this sport and really, you know, go for it, maybe do quite a few competitions or even go for a British or a pro card or whatever, you've got to take every facet of bodybuilding super seriously. And if you talk to any of the people I've worked with, you'll see that I'm super finicky with them about those little areas as well. It's so important. The minutiae I always talk about, so important to get those bits right, because one of my favorite sayings is how you do anything is how you do everything. So getting up in the morning, making your bed, training, sleeping, everybody puts loads of emphasis, especially at the beginning, on the training, because you love it, right? Because it's cool, right? You go in the gym, you feel cool, you've got your little outfits on and all that, and you're doing your gym. And the rest of it's kind of boring. You know, it's eating, dicing up your food, you know, putting in the fridge. You've got all these Tupperware everywhere. It's boring, you know, getting to bed on time, but you still want to stay up with your boyfriend, don't you? And have fun and stay up till whatever time and, you know, and then go to bed, maybe have some great sex and then go to get up on 4, 5, 6 hours sleep and then go to the gym and do your 10,000 steps a day. Listen, if you want to be serious and you really want to take it as far as you can, you have to get serious about everything. How you do anything is how you do everything. You have to get serious. And if you want to get real results, because the standard, even in the short time I've been in it in the last 6 years or so, in working with bodybuilders and stuff, the standard is different now.
Yeah,
it's insane. You know? And there's new people coming into it, and I look at them and I go, wow, where did you come from? You know, and you know, it's kind of crazy. So if you want to do anything in this game, you have to get serious about it. You can't just stick a toe in. You know, bodybuilding is not the game for sticking a toe in and having fun with it, because of the dieting and the way you have to live.
Not fun.
It's not fun. It's not. It's brutal. And I say the same to boxers who I've talked to and footballers. Those games, the training is brutal. Footballers, they run between 10 and 12, 13K a match. You know, stop, start, track back, all that. It's hard. You know, boxers, it's one of the most brutal training there is. So you don't do those sports for fun. tiddlywinks is really good if you haven't got the mental strength for it. You know, that's something you can do. But as a bodybuilder, you know, get your head right. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. Get ready for it. And then the more you're prepared at the beginning, honestly, the journey is so much easier. And don't be scared to reach out to people who've been there, the Emmas, and same as yourself, Sarah, you know, reach out to people who've got experience and stuff like that. Don't be scared, because do you know what? Experienced people love giving tips. They do.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
We love to help. Like, you know, if we can just help in some way or another, just to, you know, give you some of our knowledge or our experience, like, why not? More than anything, just pass that on to help others, you know, make their journey the best it can be.
I talked to a few people and they've been scared. They said they've been in the gym and they see somebody and they go, oh, I don't want to go over to her and ask it. But giving a quick tip is okay. I'm not saying, listen, guys, if you're listening, I'm not saying be that tight person who's going over and trying to get their whole coaching or something, right? Be prepared to invest in yourself. Get a coach who can help you move you forward. But if you see someone in the gym and they're experienced and they're good and they're much further on than you, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, how do you manage with your eating, or how do you manage to do that? Or, you know, I'm just doing this at the moment. Have you got any tips that you could pass on? And someone will give you 2 minutes in the gym and give you a quick bit of advice. There's nothing wrong with that, but don't sit in silence and suffer in silence. Invest in yourself. It will speed up the whole process so much more.
You got to lose, like, ask the question.
Put yourself in the, you know, you're doing things that are out of your comfort zone anyway as a bodybuilder, and things like Emma does the stage workshop and group type settings. You know, a lot of federations do like mini group posing sessions and things. These are all really good ideas to actually start, you know, going out and speaking to
connecting with people. It's like, it's an amazing opportunity to connect with like-minded people. And, you know, the group stuff that I run, whether it's the stage coaching workshop, whether it's one of the online intensives, I encourage people to connect. I'm like, switch details, swap your Instagram accounts, like, get on each other's journey and connect and make friends. And I know that there's been so many long-standing friendships that have come out from connecting from group posing or workshops, and that makes me happy, because you need those people around you. Like, you need to have that support network, and you need to have those people to talk to as well.
It's good for the community as well. And there's a few people who I've spoken to who were nervous to go to Emma's coaching and that, and I've had to talk them into it.
I know, you know? Which is crazy. I've had people who wanted
and then
to
they've loved it.
That have wanted to come to the stage coaching workshop, and then, you know, they've been last minute, oh, I'm not going, I don't think I look good enough. Or people, clients that are coming into the studio that are coming to the stage coaching workshop, and they say, oh, am I going to be the only one there that's not in condition, and what are the others going to be like? I'm like, look, you're all in the same boat, and nobody is there to judge. And I think what we have to remember about bodybuilding is that everyone's very into themselves, because it's a selfish sport, and all we really care about is how we look. No one's really looking at anybody else. And that's what I always say.
It's show day, isn't it? Like, when you stay in your own lane and you just focus on bringing your best, it's so much of a better outcome. As to, it doesn't matter really where you place, you know, we go in with that mindset of the winner's mindset. But if you've done your best, and what I mean by, you know, it doesn't matter if you place, if you've gone in with your best, you've nailed your prep, you set your expectations, you know, you've got the right people around you, it's a far better outcome than if you go in and you look at everyone and you go, I'm not good enough, they look better than me, she's got better delts, she's got better glutes, it just spirals out of control.
Control the controllables is something that I work on with my clients all the time. You can't control anybody else. You just can't. And it doesn't matter if it's boxing, football, tennis, whatever, you know, you can't. It's even business. You can't control anybody else. What you can do, though, is be a better version of you than you were the day before. That's all there is to it. And it doesn't matter if it's business or if it's sport, you know, you can train with more intensity tomorrow. You can step it up. You can say, do you know what? I'm going to improve my sleep tonight. I'm going to go to bed 15 minutes early. I'm going to get a bit more sleep. I'm going to nail my prep a bit more because I nipped in the petrol station on the way home and had a Twix bar. You know, I'm not going to do that tomorrow. I'm going to, you know, the only thing you can control is you. There's no point going on Instagram looking at everyone else and going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You can't make a little voodoo doll and break someone's leg or something, and slow them down or something. It doesn't work. But what you can do, what you're always 100% in control of, is your behavior and your attitude, so your performance and your attitude, that's what you can control. So focus on that. Focus on, how do I be a little bit better in every area every day? And that's it. And some days you won't be, but the next day then is a challenge to be better, and then try and be better and be better and be better. And when you do that, like you've said, because you've been the best version of yourself every single day, and your head's down, and you're focusing on your food, you focus on your training, you focus on your sleep, you're focusing on all the little bits and pieces. One day you wake up and it's the day before the event.
Yeah.
No.
This relates as well to when you're being judged. This is a subjective sport. The judges don't look on the stage. I think we've spoken about this before, Rob, and go, okay, so that person's been through a divorce in this prep. That person's lost their mum. That person's moved house. They go physiques, and it is subjective. I think that I probably went into it as this like, this is going to be really fun, and I didn't really understand the impact it would have on me when there is lots of girls, especially bikini category, and you're all being judged. It can be quite a I don't know, I guess a bit of a shell shock, because it's like, oh my God, and you've got to be realistic with it. Someone's got to win.
Someone's got to win, someone's got to not place, like. And as well, touching back on what Rob was said, you can only control the controllables. And you have no control over who's going to turn up on the day. Like and I think this as well, like the reality of bodybuilding. One week you could come first in that lineup. You could compete the next day and you could come dead last.
I know.
You can only be judged on who's on stage on that day as well. So, sometimes it's a hard lineup, sometimes it's an easy lineup. Amazing, well done, fantastic. But there's so many variables that go into that actual day.
That's why it's totally not worth looking at anybody else. There's no point.
No point.
We all do it, and you have a little nosy or whatever, but then you've got to have a trigger to take yourself back and go, okay, stay focused. Let me crack on with what we're doing, because there's too many other things to worry about with your diet and prep and everything else. And you've got enough on your hands without looking at people on this dreaded Instagram and going, oh my God, look at them, they're amazing. And then, like Emma said, they don't even turn up.
I've competed before, and when I used to compete, and there always used to be one girl who would never let on that she was competing. So you'd be so focused on somebody else, you'd be like, oh, this person's turning up, I'm never going to beat that person. And then they would turn up, and then the other girl would turn up, and you'd be like, this person's second place gone. It's gone. There's no point in getting caught up in that at all. You just have no control over that. So all you can do is tick your boxes and know that you are bringing your best package possible that day, and that's all you can do. And also, I strongly believe with bodybuilding, if you are going for those top spots and you're going for that pro card, there's a thing called timing. And sometimes it's just not your time. It took me 3 years to win my first show, because first year I just wasn't ready. I wasn't good enough, but I had to wait for the girls above me who'd been doing it longer or just had better physiques. They were just better than me. They were better put together. And I was just never going to beat them. No matter how good I got, I was never going to beat them. And I just had to keep going back, going again and again and again and again, until eventually they retired.
But that's it. But that's a mindset thing. And that was because you'd set your stall out that I'm a bodybuilder. I'm in this for the long haul. That's what I'm going to do. And this is why I mentioned before about having the mindset. And again, if you're new and you're listening to this, it's super important to set your stall out. Are you in it for fun? Are you in it for just a season and see, I'd like to get on stage. If I just get on stage, I'm happy and I'm done. And I'll retire and I'm done, and I'll die happy that I've got my photos and show my kids. And if that's fine, that's fine. And if you want to do more than that, set your stall out. then, like Emma said, you can take your losses because you know it doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter so much because I'm here for the long haul. I am going to start winning because I'm going to outlast everyone else at least. And a little bit of a caveat for that with Emma is that, and I don't want to make excuses for her, but back in the day, I remember it was harder, right? There was less competitions. There was less everything. You went on that stage and there was a lot of the same people. Now,
it was the same athletes season after season. I wasn't going to beat them. Do you know, like now you've got the beauty of there being multiple shows, like there's loads. and also, you know, because there's so many shows, there's so much more opportunity to win. Like I had the choice of doing like, there was 2 seasons, there was October and there was like April. There was maybe 2 shows and you could only compete in your region. You had to do your region, then you do the finals. And in the region, there would be like 30 girls on stage. And then in the finals, there'd be even more. And you had to get, or still now you have to get an invite, but the stakes were so much higher. That maybe not necessarily the standard with first timers, because I do believe the standard of bodybuilding is a lot higher now. But there wasn't the opportunity to go and do so many shows and compete all over the place and chase and get it quicker. That's why it took me 3 years to win.
Yeah.
You know, 6 years to get a pro card.
I just thought I'd stick that in just to give you a little bit of a, but it was tougher. But it's the same mindset, though. It's still the same mindset. You've got to be all in. You've got to go for it, and you've got to put 100% in and do it. I see still too many. I was chatting to a couple of people who I know personally from Leeds. I'm not going to say any more than that. They'll know their mindset's wrong. You know, they've gone into this. And it's like they're sticking a toe in. See how it goes, having some fun. And I'm watching their progress because they're in prep now and they're a mile off, a million miles off. And again, it's because the mindset isn't right and their circle or their coach or something is just taking money off them. And this is something I'm really, really passionate about. If you're listening to this and you're not sure or you don't feel like it's going right, get a second opinion. Yes. Because there are unscrupulous coaches out there, and I always seem to say something controversial about coaches, but there's loads of brilliant ones, by the way. But there are unscrupulous ones out there that'll just keep taking money off you, and they don't care, and they'll blow smoke up your ass and tell you, "Yeah, you're looking all right. Just keep going. It'll be all right." And then they're not. But listen, get a second opinion because the truth hurts, but it's needed. This is an expensive sport, mentally and physically, and cash-wise. You don't want to waste your time. You need someone who's just going to say to you, look, do you know what? You can work as hard as you want. You're never going to win. But if you want to do this for fun and you want to, you know, have a good day out with you and your friends, great. I'm happy to work with you and do this with you. And sometimes that's what people have to hear. But I'm seeing people throwing a lot of money on supplements and food and this and that, and then talking a big game. And I'm like, I'm not a coach, and I don't want coaches attacking me going, "Yeah, what do you know?" She might go, yeah. I've been in bodybuilding gyms and around bodybuilders for over 35 years, right? I like to think I know a little bit about it. So, and not just the mindset side, the actual training and body and physicality side. I know when I see somebody who's not got a hope in they could train for 5-10, that sometimes there's just genetics that just says you're just not going to get there. And I think it's important because I don't want to see people get ripped off. I don't want to see people, you know, fed loads of BS about their chances of where they're going to be. But I do agree with people doing it as a hobby and saying, look, I just want to have some fun. I don't care if I come 7th or 8th. I'm not bothered. I just want to get on stage and feel brilliant and fabulous for a day. That's totally fine. But go into it knowing where you're heading and what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, it's like you say with money, Rob, you know, like I think sometimes people go into a prep and maybe their coach doesn't have a conversation. Actually, this is going to cost quite a lot. You know, there's things to consider. Like I've had people that have said, oh, you know, I won't bother with a posing coach. And I'm like, you need to have sessions with Emma. You need to invest in posing because how are you going to exhibit your best when you step on stage and you've done 6 months of paying for food, your coach, training, whatever else it is, but then you're not going to invest in one facet of prep, like you call it, Rob, you know, one really, really important bit. And I think that sometimes maybe people go into it, they go into it blind and think, oh, you know, it's cool, but you've got to pay for these things and seek out the right advice.
I think posing coaching now, and again, not an expert, but we've got one on the panel, so that's great.
For sure, yeah.
We've got the best. So listen, I'm not an expert, but now, again, just from my eye and seeing competitions in, you know, 7-8 years ago, and seeing even competitions 12 years ago in the early days, I used to go with a friend of mine. Posing back then wasn't considered as important. It was a case of get on stage and just flex and do your thing, and pretty much that was it. Now, people are so, again, new first timers and stuff, they're so good at it that if you haven't been trained, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to stand out. You're not going to look as fluid and controlled and effortless as some other people. And that's what catches the judge's eye. And I don't want to speak on behalf of Emma, and I know she'll jump in after this, but it's so important. And again, people who I work with, if they want to cut that out, again, it's not being serious. And again, if you just want to have fun and get on stage and not bother, then hey, listen, who am I to say any different? But if you really want to do this and put all that effort in, and you want to get as far up that winner's rostrum as you possibly can, you cannot leave out important things like doing regular posing practice and investing in yourself. Again, that's another coach that you need to invest in to be the best version of yourself. And this is all mindset, all of this. The posing coach, as well as your training coach, as well as your food and everything else, you need to go all in.
Yeah, I'm sure you agree, Emma.
Yeah, and you know, with posing, like Rob just said there, back in the day, you could get away with it. There actually was no posing coaches. When I first started to compete, it was the case of have someone in the gym show you, who might have been in the bodybuilding scene, and they show you what they know, and you just kind of have to figure it out. And I remember stepping on stage and what I had been taught, and then looking at the girls next to me thinking, they're doing something completely different. And just luckily, because I have that eye, I was just kind of like stood watching going, oh, okay, I'm just going to slightly adjust myself here to look a little bit better. But now, simply, if you do not do your posing practice and work with a posing coach, you just simply won't get the place in that you potentially deserve. And it's as simple as that. And you just can't afford to not invest and learn from a reputable coach, because you just will not look as good as you should. And like we said, the standard is so high now. I get both ends of the spectrum. I get first timers that come to me 12 months before their show, and when they step on stage, they don't look like they're a first timer. They come to the group events, they do the online courses, they come to the stage coaching workshops. Some of them come to like 2 in a year, and they're so prepared for that first step on stage that you just know that they're destined for greatness, because they've really done the job. They've done the daily minutiae, they've committed to it, they've ticked the boxes on everything, on the prep, on the posing, getting the right coach. And touching on coaches as well, I think, again, there's two opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah.
There is the coaches that they'll just tell the client anything they want to hear, because they just want to look like they've got loads of clients and get them on stage. And then there is the client that is really a little bit naive and hasn't really done their research, and they're excited and they're like, oh, this bodybuilding thing is new, I want to do it, I want to get on stage. And physically, they're just not ready. And mentally, they don't know what's to come. And then they get on stage, and you know what they do? They say, I wish I'd waited. I wish I got a posing coach. I wish I'd built more tissue. So I do think it's really important that you seek out a coach and you ask them for their honest opinion, because I think a lot of coaches are scared to give it. And when your coach tells you, you maybe need to look at competing in 12 months time, because you need to grow. You don't have the muscle mass yet to get on stage and be competitive. And if you do get on stage now, you're probably just going to be disappointed with the outcome.
Yeah.
So just wait. This stage is not going anywhere.
That's my favourite saying.
It's really not going anywhere. Like it's there forever. It's not. And you need, again, all of the variables to be in the right place to make sure you can really commit and execute. the prep, and you have to do, I get people coming to the studio and they tell me they do like a prep for a prep before they get into a prep. And I'm like, yes, we need to, because the standard is so high. And if you want to do this thing called bodybuilding, then it's a lifestyle, and it's a 365 commitment.
Yeah, I really like how Rob always says, about coaching. You've said it before, Rob, on the pod, that you're paying for a service, so you're allowed to ask questions.
Yes.
And the premium can be quite high for coaching, as we know. And if you're not even able to ask a question and you feel, scared to ask a question, maybe that's not the right coach for you. And remember, you are paying for this service. So if you need to come away from that coach and look for another coach, have multiple consultations, do your research. Maybe speak to their clients, and I always say, if I go on a consultation with someone, there's no pressure from me. If you come on board, you want to come on board. But, coaches, I think sometimes they need to be able to be a bit more open to clients, especially first timers. There's going to be a lot of questions, isn't there?
Yeah, massively. Absolutely. And I just, sometimes I get clients in the studio and they'll ask me about their prep, and I'm doing this, is it right? And my training schedule's like this. And I'm like, have you asked your coach? And they're like, I've tried. And I'm like, again, like you just said, you're paying for a service. So you should be allowed, you're in a working relationship where you can ask, because you're here to learn. And, if you're paying for someone, I want to get as much out of you as possible. Be a sponge, take as much as you can from your coach. Definitely shouldn't feel like you're not allowed to ask questions. And they shouldn't when you do, they shouldn't make you feel bad for asking. You're a coach. And I think sometimes some coaches, they put themselves on a pedestal where it's like, just do as I say. I know what I'm talking about. No. Tell me why. Educate me.
Yeah. That's why I said before, haven't I? There's some coaches, I've heard horror stories over the last couple of, some, obviously I'm not going to mention it, but I've heard horror stories and
shame, Rob, name and shame.
No. It's not my place to do that. It's not my place to do that. But
no, I know.
Ultimately, you get it in all fields. You get it in all fields. It's not just in bodybuilding. You get it in all fields. But it's like you said, some coaches get a bit high mighty, especially ones that are doing really well, and or it's perceived they're doing well because they've got a lot of clients or a fair few clients. But some are unapproachable. Some get back to them very, very late. Like days and days and days and days after being sent a message or something. I don't care if your coach is great and they've got hundreds of clients. If they can't get back to you, then they're too busy for you. They're too busy for you. It's wrong. Then that doesn't make you good. That makes you bad. The world's top coaches and sports coaches, sports mindset coaches, sports psychologists, they make it work. And if they get so big that they've got 150 clients or something, or 200 clients, then recruit people and have them do the initial consultation bit. Or if someone's got a question and it's a simple one, have them deal with it. And then if it needs escalating, it comes to you. But there's never an excuse with people saying, I just don't seem to get back to me anymore. And he's very off with me, or he's very short with me, like telling you off. Listen, I can be firm with my clients, and I tell them, I've even said to Emma before, drop the pity party and get the fuck on with it and shut it. Right?
Pity party. I love myself a little pity party.
A little pity party, you know what I mean?
It's like you can have a pity party for 3 days and that's it.
And you go, listen, done now, let's move on, right? So I'm firm with my clients and I'm quite strong with some of it, but it's still being there and supporting and helping them, not distant where they're like, picking up the phone going, Rob, where is he?
I don't know what to do.
Sent a message 3 days ago, what's going on? Or I'm not sure about this, or could you give me a new, I don't know, program because this one isn't working, and then nothing. Or listen, don't worry about that, just crack on with it because I said it. So, it's the way that they do it is because they're busy, and I get it, they're stressed out, but you're paying good money. And it's the same analogy I think I told you last time, Sarah, about, like people do it with like driving instructors or anything, you're paying for a service, you're not happy with it, leave. There's more, there's always more, and you might find one that resonates more with you.
I must ask you, Rob, and maybe Emma, if you've got any advice here, if someone is listening, this would be a good one to wrap up on. If someone's listening and maybe they're not happy with their coach and, you know, some of the things we've just touched on there are happening, how would you deal with it if there's maybe an emotional attachment to the coach? They don't really know how to get away from the coach. How would you sort of go about that?
Well, first of all, unless Emma wants to go first, I don't know. But
you go, Rob.
Okay, well, I have actually dealt with this about 3 times in the last year and a half. What I always say, honesty is the best policy, right? So remember, yes, there is an emotional bond between you two. After a while, especially being there a while, you get to know them and almost become friends or whatever, or do become friends, depending on how close you are to them. If you're not just online, if it's someone at a gym close to you and you actually see them physically, that gets even harder then. But sometimes that closeness breeds familiarity, right? And you know, the same familiarity breeds contempt. You know, sometimes they get a bit lax because they know you well. So you have to be honest. Those who are a bit more distant, I've had them write out a long sort of WhatsApp message or whatever, and the main thing is this. So if you're listening to this and you're in this position, keep it factual. Never put feelings in there, right? Feelings don't mean anything. It's factual. I feel like you're ignoring me doesn't mean anything. They can go, I'm not. Then what? Right? But if you go, hi, John, I messaged you on the 2nd of blah, blah, blah at 10:45, and you didn't come back to me for 2.5 weeks. And then I tried to ring you, and you obviously must have seen my missed call, but you didn't ring me back at all. And then on this occasion, you did this. Look, I've been thinking, and I get it, you're busy. I understand you being, you know, you're getting popular and all that, but I need a bit more of my hand holding. And I've decided that I'm going to go with another coach going forward. There's no hard feelings. Really appreciate what you've done for me. It's been fantastic. I've been on a journey. Hopefully in the future going forward, I would like to use your services again, maybe, but I'm going to just go with someone else who may have a little bit more time at the moment and see how I go from there. Thank you again for everything. Bye. So it's factual. There's no comeback to that because it's factual, and you're being very polite and you're being very professional, and then you're not burning a bridge as well. So you can always come back. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Emma, would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I don't even really have anything to add to that, because you just need to be factual. And I've actually learned that from Rob with stuff like that. You need to take the emotion out of it, because they'll just say, well, that's just you feeling that way, and they'll just flip it on you. So I actually
remember a couple of times, Emma, where you've had something with the coach and you was a little bit like, oh, because you knew them and you were close years ago, and you were like, I remember one time, I can't remember what it was, but I remember one time it was about food, something in your diet it put in, or you didn't want in.
Well, this is common knowledge. I was with JP and he gave me a meal prep plan and I didn't like it. I would like, there's mince meat on there. I don't eat mince meat. And I just didn't tell him. Me being me, just did my own thing for the first 8 weeks of prep.
I love it.
And it's JP as well. He is one of those coaches that you're a little bit intimidated by, because he's so up there. And I was just so scared to tell him. And at the time, my friend just said to me, like, I think you need to tell him, because now you have another 8 weeks to go. And if he wants to start changing things and you're actually not on what he's told you to be on. So I was just honest. And I just said, look, like, I need to be transparent here. I haven't been on that food plan. And he just was, and I thought, oh my God, he's going to kick me off and I'm not going to have a coach. And he was like, okay, so what have you been eating? And it's fine, just be transparent. But yeah, I do remember that conversation.
Yeah.
And I do remember being like, I think I'm uncoachable.
It's really easy to put a coach on a pedestal, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Because you pick someone that you idolize, I guess.
Yeah.
And I do think that some of those, we see these coaches even more so now in the industry, where I'm going to say it, have so much ego.
Yep.
And they sometimes lose that
like personability, I suppose.
Yeah, they become like out of bounds almost. And I do understand, because the more popular they become, you know, they have to remain unreachable to some extent. But me as an athlete, I always wanted to work with someone that I knew I was kind of their priority. But unfortunately, as the industry grows, not every athlete is going to be able to be a priority to their coach, especially the good ones. So it's difficult.
Yeah,
but you still can demand respect,
a level of service.
Yeah,
service, a certain level of service. Yeah, definitely,
100%.
And I get that. What they do though is they sort of sometimes these coaches, they forget what made them big.
Yeah.
You know, and they lose sight of what made them successful, what made them have that upward trajectory, and they get a bit too, I think, big for the boots. And sometimes they need to just come back a bit and stuff like that. So,
remember what made them.
But that's on their side. That I'm not fussed about that.
No.
For the people listening who are new, just remember, you can always question people. You can always ask, why am I eating this? Why have you put that in there? What is that? And you're allowed to without getting told off.
Yeah, this is what I like about when I did posing with Emma. I could, you know, you just say it how it is, and it's like, okay, I'll work on that. Where I've worked with posing coaches in the past, and I don't really feel like, you know, it's almost like it's for a blanket version of an athlete rather than this is what we need to do for your physique. So you know, I did my research. Tom, my coach, recommended me to you, Emma, and consequently I got a really good result because you're working with the best and you're so personable. And I think that, unfortunately in this industry, it's going slightly skew with sometimes with some of the coaches that you can have access to.
Yeah. And I think that's just, you know, in any industry, the market becomes saturated.
Yeah.
And I think especially as a newbie coming into it, it can be a bit of a minefield because you just sometimes don't know who's actually good and who's not. But something me and myself and Rob always talk about is, you know, reputation. And look for those coaches that have the credentials, and use that to kind of cipher through everyone that's in there, and recommendation as well. You know, if people talk, that is another great thing about the industry. People talk. So if there is someone that doesn't have a great rep, you're going to be able to find out quite easily. And that goes for posing coaches and prep coaches. So just, you know, do your due diligence.
Yeah. And also, you know, if lots of people are going to someone year in, year out, then, you know, success leaves clues, right? So, you know, you've got to look at it and think all those people can't be wrong every year. So I'm going to I'll go to Emma, you know. That's it.
Everyone goes to Emma for posing, Rob for mindset. We're in. Thank you, guys. I think that we've hit some really good, I call them golden nuggets on the pod.
Yeah, we love those.
You know what it's like on a pod? You can listen to like an hour and then you just take like 2 or 3 things, and then that, you know, takes you on, and it can really sit with you. Like you mentioned, Emma, earlier, that something that you and Rob spoken about years and years ago, it stays in the brain.
It's in there, and hopefully that just resonates with everyone that's listening. There's definitely some awesome golden nuggets in there.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to reach out to either you guys for your services, or if, you know, something we've touched on today that resonates, like you say, Emma, is Instagram the best place? Instagram.
Rob
so
Latti.
Emma Hyndman and Rob.
That's my name. You'll find me everywhere.
So if you put the Pose and Pro in, you'll find both of my accounts there. So there's the Academy and there's also my main one. But
awesome. And it will be just in time for the season to start in the UK.
Yes.
It's
never ended. Like, I feel like, you know, the season just doesn't really end. But yes, the competitive season is kicking off and we're ready for it.
We are ready. Thank you, guys. You are both legends, and I really do appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thanks for having us again. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.